Those are two different questions on the table. So we should all care about racism everywhere. I completely agree with Darren. He couldn't be more right. Anywhere there's racism, everybody should care about it, whether they're black, white, brown, purple, or green. We need to eliminate that from our society. But whether or not the NFL is racist and whether or not you can compare the NFL to the slave trade are two different things. The idea of comparing the NFL to the slave trade, in my estimation, is one of the most asinine things I've ever heard. There are so many ways I could go with this, but I'll just give you two or three. First of all, no one in the history of mankind ever has or ever will sit and pay their money to watch slaves harvest cabbage, cotton, and kale. Nobody would ever do that. Nobody ever bought shoes or potato chips because slaves used those and liked those. Slaves were not given a free world-class education before being sent out to pick and harvest the cotton, kale, and cabbage. And I'll give you one more. If a slave didn't like the way he or she was being treated by their plantation owner, they couldn't say, you know what, I'm going to go to a different plantation, some other city, and see if I can get paid more and get a better deal. There is really no comparison between these two things.
Well, I would like to disagree with the no one has bought something because a slave was on it. You know, I mean, white folk did put Aunt Jemima on the pancake box and we eat them up. And let's talk about Uncle Ben. And, you know, so there were a lot of times that white folk used black people and their image to increase their revenue on their products, and particularly food products. I oftentimes think about Corky's in Memphis, Tennessee. They have every year they go on one of those channels that sell things, and they put a black man on the barbecue to sell it, but really it's owned by a white man.
Our image is one thing, our activity is another. So people buy shoes or potato chips because the so-called slaves of the NFL wear those shoes or endorse those chips.
Understood.
So their image and their activities are two different things. Nobody bought Aunt Jemima's syrup because Aunt Jemima claimed this is what I use. Her picture was just the one that was on the label.
Okay. Here we go. I want to come back to what you were saying though, Dr. Oya. So I'm glad you're speaking now. When you talk about how the NFL makes a massive amount of money and there's no equity in it for black people. Let's take the simplest form of any occupation. There's no equity in any of it for us. When you work at FedEx, there's no equity there and you're shipping the boxes. There's no equity if you're working at the grocery store and you're counting up the groceries. Where is there equity in any company?
No, I agree 200% for you, and I 200% with you that there isn't any type of equity. And that's why you have people fighting. That's why we're fighting for reparations and fighting for redress. I mean, there's no equity. I did want to address what Mr. Derek Wilburn said about how it's asinine to make the comparison. Now, of course, Derek, that we're not saying that the NFL is exactly like chattel slavery, even Jim Crow semi-slavery. But we can't deny that there are some similarities, as Tammi stated. There are some parallels. They're both systems that exploit Black labor, right? That creates white wealth. We can't deny that.
No,
okay.
Yes, we can.
We can't deny that the plantation owners were all white, right? Just like the NFL owners are all white, although Blacks make up 70% of the NFL. So we can't deny that. We can't deny that during slavery, our ancestors were treated as property. In the NFL, those men are still treated as property. As Colin Kaepernick revealed in his Netflix series, he showed how the combine was extremely degrading. They were being examined literally like cattle. They're looking at their physique, the speed, the toughness, the instinct. Isn't this reminiscent of the auction block when our ancestors were presented to potential slave masters, where they were examined? They looked at their teeth, they looked at their lips, they looked at the muscles, and in some cases, they looked at the genitals of those men. These men on the NFL teams, they can't even speak out, right? Because they operate in fear that they're going to lose their contracts, fear that they're going to lose sponsorships, fear that they're going to be cut. So they can't even speak out on certain issues or associate with people who haven't been accepted or people who people who haven't been accepted by the dominant society.
Well, Derek, she makes a valid point when she says they can't speak out on issues in the NFL.
That's not true. That's not true. They've been speaking out on the issues of which helped give birth to the Black Lives Matter movement beginning in 2016, the genesis of which was Colin Kaepernick. But you're leaving out an extreme.
And what happened to Colin Kaepernick?